With the football season right around the corner, it is time to give my predictions where I'm going to be telling you who's winning the division from bottom to top. I'm going to give my award winners. I'm going to give who my dark horses this year could possibly be. And I'm giving my Super Bowl champion. So let's get right into it. Starting with the AFC North, where I have the Browns placing last at 3-14. And when you look at this team, there's really not a lot of good stuff to look at. The quarterback situation is an absolute mess. They have Uncle Joe Flacco playing at his 40-year-old ripe age, and they got Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel behind him. Neither of them looked very solid in the preseason. Gabriel looked better than Shedeur for sure, but the quarterback room isn't pretty to look at. Along with that, the receiver room, it's not great either. Jerry Jeudy was awesome last season. He had a very good season considering what his situation was, but they don't really got much behind him. Cedric Tillman, I do think, can take a solid step up, and Njoku is always going to be solid, but besides that, there's really not much to look at. The running back room is almost just as confusing as the quarterback room. Quinshon Judkins had issues, legal issues, matter of fact, and he's cleared from all of those, but still he has no contract with the Browns. So it's looking like a possible backfield with Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford due to the loss of Nick Chubb in the offseason. They did make a nice couple additions on the defense that I do like. They did add Mason Graham with the 5th pick in the first round this year, and then they also added linebacker Carson Schwettinger. They also brought on Malik Collins to help bolster that defensive line, which is going to help Myles Garrett produce more. However, this defense is really going to have to show up in games to stop any team from straight up beating their ass. The Browns' schedule is not very favorable this year considering they are going to be going against the NFC North, and then they're facing their own division as in the AFC North, which is pretty solid, pretty good matter of fact, due to the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Bengals. I just don't see a real possibility where the Browns can make any sort of progress this year. And unfortunately, I think it is possible Kevin Stefanski does get fired this year, and if he does, that is the Browns' fault because Stefanski is a very good coach. He just won Coach of the Year not too long ago, and if he gets fired, that is a huge step down for the Browns, but they got to throw somebody under the bus. Finishing third in the division, just missing out on the playoffs, I have the Cincinnati Bengals as the 8th seed with a 9-8 record. So first things first, I'm actually going to start with the offense here, and we all know this offense is going to be absolutely lethal. Chase Brown looked incredible last year. He finally brought some dynamics to that backfield, which they haven't had in a very long time since probably Giovanni Bernard. And Joe Burrow is going to play as good as he's always played if he stays healthy. And then you got Jamar Chase, who was the league leader in receiving yards last year with T. Higgins behind him. Andre Yoshivas could take a nice step up this year as well. However, what has them at a 9-8 record is this lack of defense. Their defense is going to be absolutely putrid. And like I said earlier with the Browns, they're going to be facing a pretty tough schedule too due to that NFC North and the AFC North divisions. They finally gave Hendrickson a deal, in quotes. He got a $30 million deal just for this year, and then he will be able to walk in free agency. And then they finally signed their first round pick, Shamar Stewart, after tons of negotiation. But unfortunately, I don't think those two signings are going to change that defense that much. Yes, they did add Demetrius Knight, who is going to be a very nice linebacker for this team as well. But I don't really like what I'm seeing with this defense to begin with. Losing Jermaine Pratt and Sheldon Rankins and Sam Hubbard. Those are some big losses. Not having Von Bell and Mike Hilton don't help either. Placing as the 6th seed and finishing second in this division, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 11-6. Now, you may be saying, that is a crazy take. Okay, it's understandable. Yes, Rodgers is unk. This team is unk. A lot of old players. They added probably 3 old vets here. Aaron Rodgers, Darius Slay, and Jalen Ramsey. But for the most part, all those guys can still ball. Yes, Rodgers didn't have a great season last year. To his standards, keep in mind. He was honestly one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But in comparison to his past years, it just wasn't as good. But I think with him and the addition of DK Metcalf, however, they did lose George Pickens, but I think the offense should be pretty solid. The defense is going to be what wins them games. That is the kind of culture they've had for many years to begin with. And I think Rodgers is going to put them further ahead than what Russell Wilson and Justin Fields did for them last year. I do think the run game can take a step up this year. Jaylen Warren is going to get most of the touches in this backfield, but Caleb Johnson has a very good opportunity to take it over as well, and I think the run dynamic should be a little bit stronger than it was last year. I think the defense has a very solid chance to be a lot better than it was last year. They added a lot more pieces to their secondary, like I said, with Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay. However, they did lose Minkah Fitzpatrick due to a trade with Jalen Ramsey. But they did add a couple of guys to hopefully bolster that secondary a little bit. They did add Chuck Clark, and I think they'll be able to figure it out. They picked Derek Harmon in the first round to help bolster that defensive line, and I don't see a reason why this team would miss the playoffs, because they make it anyways every year, but the roster that they put together this year is much better than last year. And finishing in first place in the division and the conference, I have the Baltimore Ravens going 13-4. And honestly, just look at this roster. The offense is absolutely lethal, with Lamar Jackson having an MVP season last year. Didn't win the award, but very well could have. Derrick Henry, we got Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely is going to start the season injured, but he'll eventually come back and hopefully help this offense out a little bit more. Keaton Mitchell should be healthy this year, so in case Derrick Henry gets hurt or takes a little bit of a slowdown, Keaton Mitchell is going to bring some explosiveness to that backfield. They still have Rashad Bateman as one of their receivers, and they did bring in DeAndre Hopkins this season, which I think could be a nice change of pace for the offense a little bit. Get somebody that can get up and get the ball. But as we know, DeAndre Hopkins is not the youngest. He didn't play too well with the Chiefs when he got traded there last year, and I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make, but it's something to keep note of. However, the real difference is this defense. They drafted Malachi Starks in the first round, and that's going to be a beautiful safety to pair along with Kyle Hamilton, who got a hefty extension this year. 4 years, $100.4 million. They brought in Jair Alexander, and they also drafted Mike Green, who's going to be, he fell down draft boards due to allegations and things that happened in his past college, but he's an outstanding edge rusher, and the fact that he fell that far is huge for the Ravens, and you don't miss out on somebody like that. There's a nice addition as well if he stays healthy, but as of now, it does not look great. He's having some knee issues, and they also brought in Chidobe Awuzie. Not league-changing, but it is solid to have some depth back there. The biggest issue with this team, and it's not really even an issue anymore because it's done and over with, is what happened with Justin Tucker. He had a lot of sexual misconduct stuff happen, so they let him go, and they bring in Tyler Loop, who has looked very good in preseason, so it's going to be like nothing changed. But with how good this roster is top to bottom, there is no way that this team does not finish in the upper echelon of the NFL and the conference. I think it's very possible that this team can make its way to the Super Bowl this year. Moving on to the AFC East, I have the New York Jets finishing last at a 4-3 record. And honestly, this one is kind of just a given. This team just isn't good, honestly. They have a lot of young pieces that are good players, but besides that, there's really not much to look at. Breece Hall didn't look great last year. Braylon Allen very well could take over this backfield this year. Behind Garrett Wilson in the receiving room, there really isn't much to look at. Allen Lazard and the addition of Mason Taylor, but can't really look at much there. And then obviously the addition of Justin Fields, their new quarterback, manning the helm this year. And, Justin wasn't very good last year, and under a worse scheme and roster, I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to produce. Yes, maybe the run game will be a little bit better, but Justin Fields, I don't think is fully the answer there. And even if he is, I don't think it's going to be enough for this team to get over 500. The defense did acquire a couple reinforcements this year. First things first, they extended Sauce Gardner. They brought in Andre Sisco, Brandon Stevens, and Isaiah Oliver for the secondary. But besides that, there wasn't really much to look at. Harrison Phillips did come into a trade, which should help their D-line a good amount. They lost Devontae Adams. They honestly lost more than they gained this year. The addition of Armand Membu should help their offensive line a good amount, which they definitely need due to Mekhi Becton leaving last year and playing very well with his other team, so they kind of need somebody that can replace his spot. But honestly, I'm just not high on this team at all. I felt like I was higher before I saw the preseason go through in camp, but I'm just not liking what I see here. Now, yes, Aaron Glenn is the new coach on this team. He could change how this culture is going to be. He could turn his team around. I just don't think the roster is there to do it at this time. I think they have a lot of improvements they need to make, and I don't think it's their year just yet. Finishing third and a little bit of a shock, I have the Dolphins at 5-12. And you may be thinking, 5-12, that's kind of crazy. But in all fairness, I don't think it is. We saw Tyreek Hill take a step down last year. Obviously, it's Tyreek Hill. He's probably not going to play like that all the time. And then Devon Achan's already dealing with injury. Yes, the addition of Ali Gordon through the draft is very good, and he very well could be a solid replacement for Achan if he deals with injuries, but I'm just not liking what I see on this team. Tua is known to be very injury prone, and who knows what happens if he actually gets hurt. I think Zach Wilson is the backup there, so we know that is not an ideal situation. Jalen Waddle hopefully can take a little bit of a step up this year, maybe get to the playing level that Tyreek Hill is at. They got rid of Jonnu Smith. They brought in Darren Waller, which isn't league altering at all. And in all fairness, I'm not too high on the defense either, especially that secondary. Losing Minka Fitzpatrick, bringing in Rasul Douglas, bringing in Jack Jones. Your secondary isn't that good. Your linebackers are pretty solid. Bradley Chubb, Dalen Phillips. You have so many guys you have to rely on staying healthy, Matthew Judon included. There's just so many variables for this team to actually be successful, and I just don't think it's realistic for everything to fall into place in 1 year, especially with how the Dolphins go. I could very likely see Mike McDaniel fired. I do not think he's a good coach. I think he sits behind a mask that emulates him as a good coach, because he is not. So 5-12 for the Dolphins. Coming second in the division, finishing 9th in the AFC, I have the New England Patriots at 9-8. I am extremely high on this New England Patriots team. I think 9-8 is the fairest record I can give them. But honestly, I can see them being a lot better and maybe sneaking into the playoffs. Drake May is going to be a very good quarterback in years to come. I think it's very possible he hits that top 10 status maybe by this year, but that's a little bit of a stretch, but I am that high on Drake May. I think the additions of Travion Henderson and Stephon Diggs are going to change this team offensively a lot. Hopefully the offensive line can take a bit of a step up. I know they were a bit of an issue last year, but honestly, with how the run game should be this year, backing Travion Henderson and the additions of Stephon Diggs to help out that passing offense, I think they should be very solid. Hunter Henry should have a good year. He had very good chemistry with Drake May the whole season, and they made a lot of defensive additions with Milton Williams with a huge 4-year, $104 million deal, and Harold Landry, Carlton Davis, Spillane, and Christian Ellis. A ton of moves that they made, and I think that this team has the ability to really lock it in this year. And I think the main reason here is the addition of Mike Vrabel for their new head coach. I think he's going to completely change the culture of this team, and I'm so high on the Patriots this year, but I have to keep my predictions somewhat fair. And I think if I went over 9-8 for what their record will be, it's a little bit of an overshoot, but they do have a much higher ceiling than what I put down as their record. So, like I said, I am very excited to see how this team does. The addition of Will Campbell is going to really change this offensive line, and I think it's very possible we see maybe making the playoffs this year. But I don't think so. I think that's a next year thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do sneak in. And of course, finishing first, I have the Buffalo Bills at 12-5, grabbing that 2 seed. And we know Josh Allen just had an MVP season, and who says he's not going to do it again? Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football, argue with a wall, and I don't see why they wouldn't have a better year than they did last year. Luckily for the Bills, they didn't really lose too much in this offseason. Nothing really crazy happened with their offseason. They brought in Joey Bosa because they lost Von Miller. If he stays healthy, that is going to be a huge addition. They brought in Elijah Moore, Joshua Palmer. They didn't really do too much. But honestly, this roster was good enough to go to a Super Bowl last year, and I don't see why they wouldn't have another shot to do it again this year. I would consider their schedule very favorable as well, facing the NFC South. because they should be winning most of those games there. The only one that might be a toss-up is the Tampa Bay game, but it's very likely that they sweep that division, and the AFC East, they should take care of business in that division as well. I think it would be nice to see Dalton Kincaid return to his rookie season form, because that is another piece of their offense they really need. Hoping Shakir has a very solid year, which I think is very possible, and Keon Coleman to take that step up and really maybe solidify himself as the main dog in that receiver room. Now with the AFC West, I have the Raiders finishing last at a nice 8-9 record, and I do think they could be a sneaky team this year. However, the defense doesn't look great. I know that statistically they were pretty okay last year, but still, I don't know if the defense is going to be able to hold up. I do like the addition of Pete Carroll coming in and taking over this football team. I think they are going to change the dynamic and the culture of this football team. I think Ashton Jeanty and Geno Smith are going to be the biggest additions we see this offseason from some teams. Yes, Geno Smith is an older guy. He has a ceiling. He's already hit his ceiling, but I think he's a solid enough quarterback to bring in. That's not an Aiden O'Connell, even though he's hurt, to really lead this team and hopefully give Brock Bowers that huge step up. Even though he had an amazing rookie season, I think he could even take a higher step up with a very good quarterback behind him. Jacoby Myers is having some weird contract stuff right now. Don't know if he's going to end up playing, but if he does, I think he's going to have a pretty good year as well. Very good receiver, and now that he's got a solid quarterback, I think it's going to help out a lot. Amari Cooper came in on a cheap deal just for a year. Kind of just going to be, he's their guy, you know, someone you throw in and he'll get a catch or two a game. And then, of course, Ashton Jeanty. We can't not talk about him. The best running back prospect we've seen out of college ever. And, you know, yes, the O-line for the Raiders is very bad, but it's Ashton Jeanty. I think he's going to be able to figure it out, and there's a reason he's going first round in almost every fantasy draft. Bringing in Alex Kappa probably should help the offensive line a little bit, especially the interior. And, you know, Jeanty, there's no reason he should have a terrible year. I think, if anything, he should probably hit 1,000 yards, but that might be where he sits at. But if you know Pete Carroll football, he likes to run the ball, so Jeanty's probably going to get a lot of work. Defense got some solid additions too. Jeremy Chin, Lonnie Johnson, Eric Stokes, Landon Roberts, Devin White, Jermaine Pratt. Not the youngest names that we've seen, but, you know, they're solid guys that have pretty much solidified themselves. Besides Eric Stokes, he's a little bit of a question mark. You know, they brought in guys that are going to be veteran pieces for the defense, so they should take a little bit of a step up. I think it's very possible that they finish on the other side of this record and maybe even make the playoffs, but the AFC is going to be very competitive this year, so honestly, 8-9 is the best I could give them right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finish better than that. Finishing third in the division is the Chargers at 11-6. They will make the playoffs as the 7th seed. They're just a good team. I like that John Harbaugh is still, he completely changed the team last year, brought him back to the playoffs, and, you know, adding Omarion Hampton I think is going to be a huge deal. I am so high on Omarion Hampton. We know John Harbaugh likes to run the football. He did it a lot with Michigan, and I think it's going to be an Omarion Hampton-led offense with Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey airing it out in the pass game as well. I think bringing in Mekhi Becton next to Joe Alt is going to be very telling for this offensive line. They were really good last year, and I think they're going to be even better now. They just made not too many signings, but everybody that they did make I think was solid, with Dante Jackson and Elijah Molden coming in. You know, just little pieces that are going to help this roster every bit. But losing Rashawn Slater for the year is going to be a massive loss for this team. So I don't see this team missing the playoffs, but I also don't see them finishing in the higher tier of this division because it is going to be so competitive. So give me 11-6 for the Chargers. And finishing at 12-5, I have the Broncos, who are going to grab the 5th seed. And that might be a crazy prediction. Like, holy crap, are you seriously thinking the Broncos win 12 games? I really do. I don't see a reason that they could. Maybe the receiver room isn't as solid and Bo Nix has a little bit of a sophomore slump. But the defense improved, even though they were probably a top 3 defense last year. They added Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga. They drafted Jahdae Barron in the 1st round. there is absolutely no reason for this defense to kick some ass and be the best in the league by far. The offense improved as well, bringing in Evan Ingram, so he finally has that solid tight end to throw to. We know Sean Payton likes his tight ends. Pause. He also likes his running backs. He brought in J.K. Dobbins and drafted R.J. Harvey in the second round, which I think he will take over the backfield eventually. And if they can have a good run game, which they didn't have last year, it's going to take a lot of pressure off Bo Nix, and it's going to allow a much more dynamic offense. And I really do think that this team is going to click in all pieces. Courtland Sutton should have a good year. Evan Ingram is going to be that nice outlet for Bo Nix. I think the running game is going to take a step up, and then we're going to see the defense be locked down and dominant more than they were last year. I'm hoping that Marvin Mims takes a bit of a step up this year. I also like the drafting of Pat Bryant. I think he could be a huge piece of his offense as well. The only thing that really could damage this team is if Bo Nix has a very down year, but, I don't think it's really going to happen. I think the way the team is around him, it's going to be very hard for him to have a down year. Offensive line is good. I don't think it's going to be a CJ Stroud situation that it was last year. Stroud had a lot of things go wrong for him, stat-wise and roster-wise, and hoping that doesn't happen with the Broncos. If nothing like that happens, Bo Nix should actually take a step up this year, and I think 12-5 is very realistic for this team. And finishing first, no surprise here, is the Kansas City Chiefs at 12-5. And yes, I do think they're actually going to have the same record as the Broncos. The Chiefs, they're inevitable, right? Mahomes, Kelsey, Rashid Rice got suspended. Xavier Worthy had a good year last year. Pacheco should take a step up because of his injury last year. There's no reason for this team to not be good. The defense is about the same as it was last year. Hopefully Kelsey has a little bit of a better year. It is possible we see a little bit more of a regression than we saw last year. But I do think Noah Gray is a very solid tight end. And honestly, there's no reason for this team to be worse than they were. They brought in Josh Simmons over the draft. It's a good offensive tackle if he stays healthy. They definitely needed it. We saw it in the Eagles game last year during the Super Bowl. Mahomes was getting owned due to that defensive line from the Eagles, and they clearly need offensive line help. So what do? They go out and they do it. Losing Justin Reed does suck, and having to get rid of Joe Thuney sucks as well. But honestly, those pieces are probably replaceable. It's the Chiefs. They know how to coach. They know how to develop guys, and they're going to figure it out. There's no reason for this team to be bad. Pacheco, I think, is going to be very solid this year. We should see him back to his 2023 form, and the Chiefs are inevitable, and there's nothing we can do about it. So give me the Chiefs winning the division and placing third in the AFC. Next is the AFC South, and we have to start with the team that is going to finish worst in the AFC, and that is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. When Daniel Jones is your quarterback, you are not set up in a good spot to begin with. I think Shane Steichen is a good coach, and I think he's going to get canned, unfortunately, because they got to do a scapegoat, and honestly, he's going to be the one that falls for it. But whoever grabs him, it's going to be a nice pickup, because I think he is a good coach. Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson is not good. I thought he was going to be a lot better than he is, but it doesn't seem like we're going to see anything from him anytime soon. Jonathan Taylor should be a solid runner this year, as he always is, an elite runner at that, but I don't think they're going to be in a scoring spot to where they can run the ball as much as they need to with him. I think the passing game is going to be okay. If Daniel Jones could return to that 2023 form, the Colts could be better than what I'm anticipating right now, but I don't think he gets to that point. When you got weapons like Josh Downs, who's going to be huge this year, I believe. You have Michael Pittman, the possibility of emergence of Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce, and then your new draftee and Tyler Warren, who's going to be a monster this year. There's no reason the offense shouldn't be good. The offensive line is still good, but Daniel Jones is a very, very variable factor for a team like this. And the defense is just not good. It wasn't good last year, and it didn't get any better. They signed Charvarius Ward and Cameron Bynum. They didn't really do much this year to help the team, at all, unfortunately. So, maybe Jalen Jones takes a step up this year, but honestly, I don't see much out of this defense. DeForest Buckner is still going to be a monster. Laitu Latu is going to be a monster as well, but I just don't see a possibility where this team is good as of now. I think if Jones plays well enough, it's possible, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Finishing third at, I think, is a respectable record for the Titans is 5-12. There's not too much to look at in this roster. I'm very excited to see how Cam Ward plays. I think he's going to be a very solid quarterback in this league, but honestly, there's just not too much to look at on this team. The defense was pretty good last year. I will give them that. But, I mean, aside from Cam Ward, Tony Pollard, and Calvin Ridley, I don't really think there's much to be excited about. I think Chico Conco could take a nice step up this year, but, I mean, bringing in Tyler Lockett's not really going to change much. I mean, he's a solid pass catcher. He's going to get you yards. He's going to get you catches, but I don't think that's really going to change the dynamic of this offense. I was thinking Tyjae Spears would have a huge impact on this team this year, but he's already dealing with injury, so I think it's going to be a little bit harder for that to happen. But, Tony Pollard is going to get you 1,000 yards every year, so, they're going to sneak a couple of games, but, I don't expect anything too big out of them just yet. But unless Cam Ward plays like how a C.J. Stroud and a Jaden Daniels and a Bo Nix played, if that does happen, hell, they'll go over 500 probably. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be the go-to guy, but in all fairness, I don't think he's going to take that crazy of a step up. I think he's just going to have one of those 3,500, 3,000 yard seasons. Probably win Rookie of the Year, but I don't think he's going to have that kind of rookie season that's going to put him how Jaden Daniels was last year or how Bo Nix was last year. I don't think the surrounding cast around him is going to be able to do that for him. And also, their schedule just isn't favorable at all. They're playing both West Divisions, which consists of the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Rams, and the 49ers. That is just not a forgiving schedule. So, for a rookie guy to be going against teams like that, I think 5-12 is the best I can give him. Finishing second in the division, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I think they realistically could win the division as well, but I do have them going 8-9. Their offense, it should be good. There's no reason they shouldn't be good. They gave up a good amount to go up and grab Travis Hunter, who's going to help on both sides of the ball, and pairing him next to Brian Thomas on the field is going to be absolutely lethal. If Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a good year this year, it's clearly an issue for them. I think the bringing in of Liam Cohen is going to help that offense a lot. And, we saw what he did with Baker Mayfield, and I think that he could do the same for Trevor Lawrence. I am very intrigued by that running back room, though. I think if Travis Etienne can return to his 2023 form, it's going to be a huge help for that offense as well. They didn't really have a run game last year, so it made it a lot harder for that offense to succeed. But if Etienne doesn't pan out, I think Tank Bigsby can pan out, but I'm really excited about Baishal Tootin. I think he is going to be the guy by the end of the season for that backfield. They help with the offensive line as well. They brought in Patrick McCarry, and then they brought in Robert Hainsey for the interior offensive line. I think that should help the run game a little bit more this year and help out Trevor Lawrence as well. Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray were added to the defensive side of the ball. I think if this team is going to be able to take that huge step up, obviously Trevor Lawrence has to play a lot better, but I think this defense really needs to be improved. They were bottom 5 in points against last year, and if there's no improvement there, I think it's going to be very hard for them to win games. But I do think the offense is going to be good enough, but I don't think they'll be able to place at that over 500 spot or even sneak into the playoffs just yet. If they do, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think they're ready yet. I think the defense needs some improvements, but at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked. And finally, winning the division, of course, we have the Texans finishing first, grabbing the 4th seed at a 10-7 record. The Texans, I don't know what to think of this team. I don't really think they got that much better over the offseason. I mean, they signed Jordan Lewis, Eric Murray. They signed a couple of guys, but it's nothing that really stands out. I mean, they honestly got rid of more than I think they gained. Losing Laramie Tunsil to a trade, I don't really understand that. I guess cap issues. But, I don't think they really did much in the offseason. But I think the defense is going to be very good. There's no reason that they shouldn't be good. I like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel and Woody Marks as additions to the offense. Because Nico Collins is going to have to be the guy due to Tank Dell being injured and Stephon Diggs going to New England. Honestly, I'm hoping C.J. Stroud returns to what we saw in his rookie season. If he does, this offense should be pretty good. Mixon's hurt. Chubb got brought in, so he's going to be the running back 1 to start the year until Mixon is ready. But Mixon's health is very up in the air, so we don't know what we're really looking at. I don't know. I feel like I have more question marks than I have positives with this team because they didn't really get much better. But the team that they're going to put on the field, I mean, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. But I wish they could have done a little bit more in the offseason. But I think they'll make the playoffs still. because of how high-powered that offense is, and then the defense just being solid as it always is. Now we are on to the NFC, and we're going to start with the NFC East. First team finishing last is the New York Giants at 3-14. Now, don't get me wrong, it's honestly a pretty good roster. I personally think it's a good roster. Their defense should be locked down this year. Bringing in Abdul Carter is going to make that defensive line so good, and I just don't see why that defense would be bad. Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, question marks. Running back room, question marks. Tryon Tracy looked pretty good last year. He had a lot of fumble issues, but you also got Cam Scatterbo back there too. Malik Neighbors is clearly the wide receiver 1. He's an elite receiver, matter of fact. And you got Wan'Dale Robinson behind him, which isn't much to look at on the offense personally. But what really makes this very hard is their schedule is absolutely brutal. Brutal. They got to play the Commanders and the Eagles both twice a year. They got to play the AFC West. They have to play the NFC North. They have to play the 49ers. Like, this is a really bad schedule. And every team that they play, majority of teams they're going to be outmatched. And, you know, I don't see a place for them to finish high. And honestly, for the Giants, it's probably a good thing, because they're still rebuilding, and I think they need a better pick to bolster their offense a little bit more. Maybe pair somebody up with Malik Neighbors, maybe grab an elite tight end, bolster their O-line a little bit. Like, honestly, it's a good roster, but their schedule just makes it impossible for them to be a higher team. I think they'll be a competitive team, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're going to win a lot of games, if you know what I mean. Like, bringing in Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo, like, those are good signings. And, you know, I thought they did pretty solid during the draft, too. But at the end of the day, their schedule's so tough, and they're just not a team that is going to be like, yeah, we're going to go out and win a ton of games, even though we're facing really good teams. They'll compete, but no chance that they win a lot of games. Finishing third, I had the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to be facing a tough schedule as well, and they just traded Micah Parsons, who was their key defensive player. He brought their defense from, you know, being bottom 5 without him on the field to one of the best when he's on the field. Now they just don't straight up have him, and I think that's going to be a huge issue for them. They don't really have a solid run game. They're going to be relying on Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Jaden Blue, I think, can take over that backfield, and I think he will in time. But they're going to be such a pass-heavy offense that their team is going to play catch-up majority of the time, because the defense just isn't going to be good. Dak, I think, is going to have a pretty bounce-back year. I mean, there's no reason for him to be bad. I actually like Dak. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think having CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the same offense is going to be very important. I think Jake Ferguson should have a good year as well. He usually does play very nicely with Dak Prescott, so I don't really see a reason for the Cowboys offense to be bad, just besides that there's no run game. But, like, the defense, man, they have a lot of talent, but that defensive line scares me, and there's only so much a secondary can do if your defensive line is not putting pressure on the quarterback. So, you know, Kenny Clark is a nice addition, but he had a down year last year, and he's only getting older, so I'm expecting him to just keep going down. And, you know, Dallas just has not set themselves up in a good spot. With Micah Parsons, I actually had him a lot higher, but now that they dealt him, it completely changes the aspect of this team. So, yeah, they dug their own grave, and they're going to be buried in it. Next up, finishing second, is the Washington Commanders at 10-7, and I have them just missing the playoffs as the 8th seed. And that kind of is a shock. I get it, but I do think that this team has a little bit of, you know, they might go downhill a little bit because of, you know, it's an old team, honestly. There's a lot of old people on this team. They brought in a couple of guys. They brought in Deebo Samuel. They brought in Jonathan Jones, Laramie Tunsil, Kinlaw. The roster got better, honestly. At the same time, there's a lot of guys that are older. Deebo Samuel's older. Tunsil's older. What's his name? Bobby Wagner's older. Zach Ertz is older. You know, Jonathan Allen leaving, that's a huge loss. Jeremy Chin leaving, that's also a huge loss. Like, they added a lot of guys, but I don't know how much better they realistically got. I do worry about how the defensive line's going to do, especially on the edge. You know, they lost guys like Fowler and Farrell, and that's just going to, you know, you add guys like Von Miller and Dietrich Wise, like, they're old. There's only so much you're going to do. It's just, Jaden Daniels might take a step down this year. I don't know. I think that's very unlikely, but, you know, with how their schedule is going to be, I mean, like I said, they're facing a tough schedule. I think that they are going to get outmatched in a couple of games because of their defense. Yeah, their offense is going to be pretty solid, but what's that run game going to look like? Bill Krosky-Merritt has looked pretty solid, but, as of now, it looks like Austin Eckler is your starting running back. So it's just like, I don't know. They're not going to be a bad team, but I just think they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be able to replicate what they did last year. And finishing first in the NFC and this division, no shock to anybody, I have the Philadelphia Eagles finishing at a 12-5 record. And, come on. This team is just so good. So good. It's undeniable. They won the Super Bowl for a reason, right? Yes, they did lose a lot of secondary pieces like Slay, Gardner-Johnson, Isaiah Rodgers. That's a lot of pieces to lose. But at the same time, they have a lot of young guys that should be able to take over. I think pairing up Jahad Campbell with Zach Bond is going to be absolutely massive for this team. I can't believe he fell that far. And then, like I said, with their secondary, they got other guys. Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship, Quinyon Mitchell. They have a lot of guys that are going to be able to step up for those losses. This team's going to be as good as they were. Saquon is 100% going to have a little bit worse of a season than he had last year because that's going to be extremely hard to replicate. But the offense is about the same. The defense got worse, but at the same time, they didn't lose too many pieces, and they have enough young guys to take over those pieces that were lost. And yes, losing Kellen Moore does suck, but with that much talent in the offense, I don't think it's going to matter. Now moving on to the AFC West, I have the Cardinals finishing last at an 8-9 record. Kyler Murray is such a question mark. I love Kyler, and I'm hoping he pans out to be good. He's been in the league for a long time now. We haven't really seen that huge step yet. Hopefully Marvin Harrison can take that step this year to help Kyler Murray take his step into being a top 10 quarterback. But I can't put him in as a top 10 quarterback right now. He's so inconsistent. When he's good, he's really good. But when he's bad, man, he's going to lose this team games. Obviously, Trey McBride is going to be a huge piece for that offense, as he was last year. One of the best tight ends in the league. Marvin Harrison hopefully plays a little bit better than he did last year. It wasn't terrible last year, close to 1,000 yards. But, hopefully we see a little bit more. But behind him, there ain't much. James Conner is good. He's always good. The dude's timeless. With Trey Benson behind him, the running game should be pretty solid. Him and Kyler figuring it out back there. Zay Jones was added. There just wasn't much. Honestly, Greg Dortch came back. There's nothing to talk about on the offense. Kyler needs to play better. It's as simple as that. Because Jonathan Gannon is a good coach. I just want to make that very clear. But I don't think they get over that 500 hump just yet. Because Kyler has so many question marks. What I do like is the additions on defense, mainly Josh Sweat, because that's going to really give them some pass rush firepower, which they definitely need. I'm excited to see how he plays with that team. Dalvin Tomlinson's a nice addition as well, but honestly, I can't put them over 500 yet because I don't know what I'm expecting to see from them. I think they're going to be in a tough division, and honestly, their schedule is pretty favorable, so that's probably why I have them at 8-9, but honestly, I don't see them finishing over 500. Finishing third in the division, I have the Seahawks, and the main piece of news here is that Geno Smith is gone. He got traded to the Raiders. They signed Sam Darnold for, honestly, a very nice contract, because if he doesn't pan out, he doesn't pan out. It's basically like a one-year deal the way they structured it. They drafted Jalen Milroe in the draft this year, so if he's looking better than Darnold, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him in. It's possible. They added Cooper Kupp. They added DeMarcus Lawrence. They just added a lot of older guys, and, it's not really going to make too much of a difference. Hopefully Kenneth Walker could stay healthy. If not, Zach Charbonnet is a great running back as well. So I really do think their running back room should be good, and if they can, have a better O-line than they did last year with the addition of Gray Zabel on the interior offensive line, we should see a little bit more out of this offense. We saw JSN take a huge step up last year, so they decided, let's move on from DK and Tyler Lockett. Let those two go. We're going to rely on JSN, Torrey Horton, Elijah Oreo, and Jake Bobo. I guess they got confidence in their guys, and I like how young the receiver room is because I do think that a couple of guys could stand out. Keep my eye on Elijah Arroyo for sure. But Sam Darnold is a bit of a question mark. I don't know what I'm fully going to expect out of him, but I think the defense is going to keep them in these games. Their defense was great last year, even though they dealt with a couple of injuries, but I don't see a reason for this defense to be bad. I think it would be kind of shocking if they were, especially with Mike Macdonald as a defensive-minded coach. I think having Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator should help that offense a little bit. Hopefully we see a little bit more from the receivers this year. Like I said, DK's gone, Tyler Lockett's gone. We need young guys to step up. Simple as that. If they do, very possible they finish over 500, because if Sam Darnold is just solid like he was for the Vikings, shouldn't be an issue. Finishing second and grabbing the 5 seed is the San Francisco 49ers at 11-6. And the main reason here is their schedule is an absolute cakewalk. It is the easiest schedule in football, and it's not like the 49ers are a bad roster. They got a lot of guys. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk when he comes back and he's healthy, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle. They got guys on offense, Trent Williams, they have dudes on offense that are going to make it work. And then on defense, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, come on. It's not a bad team at all. And when you're facing such an easy schedule, if you can stay healthy, this is the huge piece for the 49ers every single season. Health, health, health. They can stay healthy, there's no way they don't make the playoffs. Will they go far in the playoffs? Probably not. But Robert Saleh's back. Kyle Shanahan's still the coach. No reason they're bad. Simple as that. Now you may be like, wow, they lost a lot of guys. Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga, Charvarius Ward, Debo, Aaron Banks. It sucks, but Charvarius Ward didn't really play much last year anyways. Neither did Hufanga. They didn't lose that much. They didn't lose that many pieces that they didn't have last year in the first place. Honestly, I think they'll be fine, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere with it. And finishing first in this division, grabbing the 2 seed, is the Los Angeles Rams at 12-5. And I am so high on this team. I am so high on this team. If Stafford stays healthy, there is absolutely no reason why this team shouldn't win a division and compete for Super Bowl contention in the NFC. You have Puka Nacua, you have Kyron Williams, you got guys behind those running backs. Your offensive line was pretty solid. The defense looked really good last year for the most part. The pass rush looked great. Byron Young, Jared Verse, it was great. It was awesome. And then, bringing in Devontae Adams, Poona Ford, Nate Landman, they made very good moves, and they didn't really lose much this year either. So, I don't see a possibility where this team is bad unless injuries really kill them. Because, like I said, there's just so much talent on this team. They almost took down the Eagles in the NFC divisional round last year. If it wasn't a snow game, I think they very well could have. But, that's just the way things turned out, and I think this is their year to make another push for a Super Bowl. I think Stafford could grab his second ring. McVay could grab his second ring. There's no reason this team should be bad. Moving on to the NFC North, we got the Bears finishing last at a respectable 8-9. They didn't have a great year last year, as we know. Matt Eberflus, Caleb Williams, a lot of issues, yada yada. They're going to be better this year, and unfortunately, that sucks for me. I hate the Bears, but they're going to be good this year. Are they going to win a ton of games? No, because I think they're still on the up climb. They still got to figure out their identity. Their defense is going to be very good. I'm very excited to see how Ben Johnson transforms his offense, especially Caleb Williams. If he takes that step up, he is going to be an absolute issue in the NFC, the NFL, everything. And the running game doesn't look that awesome either. I don't really have any confidence in DeAndre Swift anymore. When Ben Johnson became the OC in Detroit, he traded away DeAndre Swift. What does that make you think he thinks about him, right? Roshan Johnson behind him, not excited for that running game. But I think the passing game could be very, very good this year. They brought in Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman. They really upgraded this offensive line, which Caleb Williams got killed by last year. Took the most sacks in the NFL. DJ Moore's still there. Romo Dunze might take a step up. They drafted Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, further giving Caleb Williams more weapons. Ben Johnson's a very, very good offensive play caller. So we'll see how he does with this young, talented offense. And the defense is just going to be good. They've been good. They were good last year. Jalen Johnson, like, they got guys. There's no reason for the defense to play poorly again. I'm excited to see how this Bears team does, because I do think they could be good this year. I think 8-9 is the fairest record I can give them at the moment, because they're the Bears. They always do something wrong, and that's kind of just how they work. So, ideally, they're worse, because I hate the Bears. But 8-9 is where I see them sitting at. And finishing third with with a very close record is the Minnesota Vikings at 9-8. And obviously, they were good last year. My question is JJ McCarthy. I don't know what I'm expecting out of JJ yet. I'm a little pessimistic. If he can be as good as Sam Darnold last year, there's no reason they should have very similar success to what they had last year. I do think they outperformed themselves last year just due to how their schedule was, but honestly, they didn't really get much worse. They bring in Adam Thielen back. They grab Jonathan Hargrave, Jonathan Allen. Like, their defensive line is going to be very good with Danielle Hunter there still. Like, their defense should be good. Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator. They had a great defense last year, one of the best in the league. And they added more pieces for the defensive line. There's no reason they're going to be worse. Harrison Phillips left, but like I said, they just replaced him. So, you got Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson should be fully healthy. Jordan Addison is going to be suspended the first 3 games, but when he comes back, he's going to be a huge piece of that offense. You bring Adam Thielen back. Aaron Jones bring in Jordan Mason, which is, I think, one of the best backup running backs in football currently. So they're gonna have a very, very good identity on both sides of the ball. But 9-8 is where I'm gonna put him right now, because I do not know how I feel about JJ McCarthy yet. If he's good, this Vikings team very well could win a division. Finishing second in the division, and I had this different until that Micah Parsons trade hit. I have the Detroit Lions grabbing the 6th seed at 10-7, and my big concern, and I'm gonna be very, very clear here. I think the Vikings and the Lions could swap depending on how JJ McCarthy plays. Because the Lions lost a ton of pieces. Like, it's kind of incredible how many pieces they lost. They lost both of their coordinators, Ben Johnson to the Bears, Aaron Glenn to the Jets. Both of your coordinators being gone, that is absolutely brutal. And Ben Johnson really transformed that offense. So we'll see how good of a coach Dan Campbell really is. If maybe he's more than just that motivator guy that I think he is. Because you lose a lot of guys. You lose Frank Ragnow, Kevin Zeitler. Like, you lose 2 very good offensive linemen on your roster. There's got to be a little bit of a downhill on how the offense is going to perform this year. Same with your defense. Like, losing Aaron Glenn, you lost a couple of defensive pieces. Carlton Davis is gone. Like, they didn't really add too much. They brought in DJ Reed, which I think is a good signing. But honestly, I don't know what to expect out of the defense and the offense. They're going to be a good team, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to be as good as they were the last 2 years. That was their main window. That's when their roster was the best, their coaching staff was the best. Aiden Hutchinson's back this year. Like, there's just so many questions for this team for me that 10-7 is the fairest record I can give them, and I do think they possibly could miss out on the playoffs. And finishing first, grabbing the 3 seed, is my Green Bay Packers. I did not have him here. Until that Micah Parsons trade, I actually had them in the 6th seed because of issues on the defense. I think Micah Parsons actually solved their issues on defense. Yes, the secondary still isn't great. We know this. Losing Jair doesn't really make much of a difference. They were still ranked as 13th in pass defense last year without him, and they basically kept the same pieces that they did last year. We're going to see people step up, hopefully, like Evan Williams. He was great last year. We're going to see Edgerrin Cooper step up, Javon Bullard, Carrington Valentine. We signed Nate Hobbs for the slot so Keyshawn Nixon can play on the outside where he plays a lot better. And then, bring in Michael Parsons to pair with Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, and Carl Brooks in the middle. Like, that defense should be very lethal. They were good last year, but they're going to be far better now. And the offense, they finally drafted a receiver in the 1st round. It has been 20 plus years since they've done it. And Matthew Golden looks like an absolute stud. He is going to be the guy for this Packers offense that isn't named Josh Jacobs and it's not named Jordan Love. Matthew Golden, Josh Jacobs, and Jordan Love are going to run this offense. They are going to be the guys, and I'm just hoping Jordan Love stays healthy. He already had something with his thumb. It should be good by now, but if he doesn't stay healthy, this is going to be a much different conversation at the end of the year, because he has no reason to not be good this year. He's got far more weapons to deal with this year. Tucker Kraft took a huge step up last year, and I think he's going to only continue to get better. Jaden Reed is dealing with injury, so we'll see how that pans out. Maybe with Matthew Golden on the roster, we're going to see Jaden Reed get a couple more opportunities because he's going to be less focused on. Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, hopefully taking that step up, grabbing more balls, catching it more, But, yeah, I mean, I am so high on this Packers team. I think 11-6 is a very fair record I could give them right now, but I do think it's possible that they finish it better than that. Finishing last in the NFC and the NFL, I have the New Orleans Saints at 2-15, and I'll keep it short and simple. You lose Honey Badger, you lose Derek Carr to retirement, you draft Tyler Shuck in the second round, you have an injury-prone receiver, you bring in Kellen Moore as your coach, which was a good move. It was a good move, don't get me wrong. But this team isn't good. This roster sucks. It's as simple as that. They're not going to win games. I think this is just like a whatever season for them, honestly. Their division is going to manhandle them. They'll probably win a game in the division, but I don't see them being any better than like maybe 3 wins. The offense is going to be abysmal. They're going to rely on Alvin Kamara. Like, I don't know what I'm going to expect out of Rattler and Shuck. I thought Rattler could be good last year, but we didn't really see much. So maybe he's a little bit better this year. But honestly, this team's going to be so terrible. Finishing third in the division, I have the Carolina Panthers at 7-10. And yes, people are very high on the Panthers. I think the Panthers could be very good this year too. I think 7-10 is the fairest record I can give them. But if they end up being an above 500 team, I will not be surprised. I think if Bryce Young plays how he did last year towards the back half, he is going to make people realize that, okay, he's actually good. We don't have to worry about him being a bust or any of that. They brought in a couple of guys. They had a nice solid draft. They brought in 2 edge rushers, and then they brought in Tedderell McMillan, who's going to take over this offense. Chuba Hubbard was great last year, and bringing Rico Dowdle behind him is very important because if they're going to have very similar production, I believe. Dowdle was great at the back half of the season with Dallas, and I think having him behind Chuba Hubbard is going to make this running game a little bit more solidified. Derek Brown should be back this year, and bringing in 2 edge pieces is going to be very helpful when it comes to stopping the run, putting more pressure on the quarterback, and the only issue is really the secondary. They don't really got much with their secondary. J.C. Horn, Travion Morrig, Michael Jackson, like, there isn't much to look at, unfortunately. So, unless their defense is putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, I think their defense is going to be a huge issue, and that's why their record is going to be what it is. Because I think the Panthers are only going to be able to do so much on the offense. I think McMillan's going to have an extraordinary year. I'm really high on Jalen Coker. I think he's going to be a great slot piece for the Panthers. He just got announced that he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, so that is a huge loss, in my opinion, for that offense. Hopefully Xavier Legette lives up to that first-rounder pick that he had, and, that's really all I can say about this team. I'm really hoping Bryce Young succeeds, but, the defense scares me way too much, and I can't put him any higher than 7-10 right now. But if the defense does play a little bit better, well, if they play a lot better, it's very possible they could win 9 or 10 games. Finishing second in the division, sneaking into the wild card at the 7th seed is the Atlanta Falcons at 10-7. And that, hot take, okay? I think the Falcons are going to be good. I think their offense is going to be nice. However, Raheem Morris does scare me a little bit. I don't know if he's a good coach. Michael Penix needs to play good this year. It's as simple as that. Bijan Robinson, we know what we're getting out of him. Tyler Algier, we know what we're getting out of him. Drake London's a great receiver. Kyle Pitts, it's finally going to be his year. I think jokes aside, I think Kyle Pitts actually might have a good year this year. The offense is going to be there. If Michael Penix is good, the offense is going to be there. And they added the pieces they needed to for the defense this year. They went out, grabbed Leonard Floyd. They made a nice couple of draft picks. They grabbed Jalen Walker for the linebacker core. They grabbed James Pierce for the edge rusher core. Like, the defense should be better this year. You got Jesse Bates and you got AJ Terrell. There's no reason the defense should take a step up this year. It just matters how much of a step up, because their pass rush numbers were abysmal last year. The pressure rate's terrible. So if they can do a little bit better this year and Penix can take that step up, which I think he's going to be a good quarterback, we're going to see this team make their way into the playoffs. However, that is not going to stop Tampa Bay Bucks, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Bucky Irving. They are not going to be stopped. They're going to win this division as the 4th seed at 11-6, and I think they're going to take care of business in this division. This offense is going to be absolutely electric. Chris Godwin's going to be back probably by week 4, week 6. He's going to start on the active roster, but he's going to be worked up slowly. Mike Evans is non-aging. This dude is incredible. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Baker Mayfield was absolutely incredible last year. If he gets his picks down, I think he's going to be able to enter himself maybe in that top 7 quarterback conversation, maybe even top 5, but you aren't ready for that conversation. Bucky Irving looked great at the end of last season. I think he's going to continue that success that he had last year. Bringing in Amika, a huge draft steal. I think he is the best receiver to come out of this class, and I am so excited to see his connection with Baker Mayfield. Bringing in Hassan Reddick and Benjamin Morrison in the second round, I think are going to help this defense build up a little bit. They were very weak last year, and I think they hopefully end up playing a little bit better this year. They made a couple of moves. They didn't really lose too much on defense, which is very important. They focused a lot of their draft on defense, grabbing Benjamin Morrison in the second, Jacob Parrish in the third, 2 corners, David Walker in the fourth, a linebacker, Elijah Roberts in the fifth. Defensive line. They really focused on defense in this draft, and I think if a couple of those guys can play well, that their defense is going to play much better this year. And I just don't see a way that this Bucs team is bad. Like, they're going to be one of those teams that you have to outscore them to beat them. You're not going to win any other way. So we're going to get into the dark horse teams. I think I got to give you, I'm going to be fair, I'm going to give 2 from each conference. So the first team I'm putting as a dark horse is the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this team could find their way into the playoffs very easily. Their teams, they have a very talented team. It's as simple as that. Pete Carroll's a great coach, and I think if the defense plays well enough, they're going to find their way into the playoffs. The only issue is how competitive the conference is going to be and how competitive their division is going to be. They are going to have to steal games in this division to even think about making the playoffs, because when you got the Chargers, Broncos, and Chiefs in your division, it's going to be very hard to find your way and climb up that ladder when your roster is the worst out of all of them. I think when you have to deal with the Bengals and the possible Patriots as good teams in this conference as well, that is going to be very tough to work around. Next is the Patriots in the AFC. I think they have potential to be very good this year. I'm very excited to see how that offense pans out, but the only issue is if Diggs gets hurt, I am scared. I think their offense is not going to be as good, but I think 9-8 is fair, but I also could see them finishing at 10-7. Their schedule, not terrible in all fairness. Like, they're facing the South divisions. They should be able to win quite a few games out of those, and maybe steal a couple of divisional games, but I think that's how it's going to end up panning out. And my honorable mention for the AFC is the Tennessee Titans. I think they could actually be very good this year. It all depends on Cam Ward. We saw it with the Texans, we saw it with the Commanders. I think very well that the Titans could be that Commanders or Texans team for this year. They could shoot themselves up into the playoffs, but I'm not ready for that conversation yet. Their defense was good. They just need a couple of pieces on offense to really show up and show out, and I think it's possible it happens. Now for my NFC sleepers. My first team that is the NFC sleeper is the Carolina Panthers. Like I said, they have a very good roster. They have a very young team, and I think their offense, if Bryce Young plays well, their offense is going to be one of the better ones in the league. And if the defense can put pressure on the quarterback and stop the run a little bit better, which they really struggled with, I think they're going to be a lot more competitive in these games. There's a lot of question marks on the defense that I can't say with confidence that they're going to be a good team just yet. But when you're facing you're facing the AFC South, I think you have a good chance to grab a couple of games. And, facing the NFC West, it does make it a little bit harder, but I do think you're going to be able to grab games from every single team in your current division too. I think it's possible to grab one from the Bucs and the Falcons and grab 2 from the Saints because, the roster isn't terrible. They just need to figure it out on defense, and if Bryce Young stays as good as he was last year and McMillan is the demon that I think he's going to be, this team very well could be over 500. And the last sleeper team is the Vikings, because I feel like they're not being talked about a lot too much because of JJ McCarthy, but look at this roster. It's basically the same as it was last year. They added more pieces, but JJ McCarthy's the new quarterback, and if he's just solid, there's no way this team doesn't find its way into the playoffs. JJ McCarthy, I am skeptical about. That's why I kept him out of the playoffs, but I do think that if McCarthy is just somewhat good, that they will find their way in. The defense is going to be better than it was last year, and it was elite last year. Justin Jefferson's going to be great. Jordan Addison's going to be good. Adam Thielen's back. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, great running core. And then you have TJ Hawkinson at full health. Like, there's no reason that this team can't be sneaky good. So let's get started with the awards. And my first award is going to be the Comeback Player of the Year. And I do think the Comeback Player of the Year is going to be Christian McCaffrey. I think he stays healthy enough to be the Comeback Player of the Year. It's as simple as this. He's elite when he's on the field, and I'm hoping he's on the field. It feels like every other year he stays completely healthy, and when he does, he's top 2, top 3 running back in football. So there's no question about him being the potential Comeback Player of the Year. My Coach of the Year is going to be Sean Payton, because I think Denver is going to finish at 12-5, like I said earlier, and I think they could even win their division against KC. Yes, KC they're hard to beat. We know this. They are one of the best teams in the NFL the last couple of years. But, I mean, looking at the Denver roster, their defense is going to be so good, and if Bo Nix is just solid as he was last year, and the running backs play well, there's no reason that this team doesn't finish, higher in the AFC. And Sean Payton, I think, has the best chances to get Coach of the Year for whoever else is here. Defensive Player of the Year is going to be Aiden Hutchinson. Michael Parsons has jumped up the Defensive Player of the Year award rankings. But, I mean, Parsons is very well could win it. I'm not even just saying that because it's the Packers, but I think it's very possible because of how good that D-line is going to be. But Aiden Hutchinson is a force to not be messed with. He is so elite, and he was on pace for an incredible season last year until he got hurt, and I think we are going to see that come around full circle this year, and he's going to win that Defensive Player of the Year. For Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going to be taking Puka Nacua. Like I said, this offense is going to be absolutely lethal. I think having Davante Adams is going to open up a lot more opportunities for Puka Nacua. Yes, Davante is great. He's going to have a good season too. But I think this team is going to be a pass-first offense. Matthew Stafford loves his number 1 guy. We saw it with Puka last year. And if he stays healthy, because he got hurt earlier in the season, if Puka stays healthy, he is going to go off this year. I think he's going to have that Cooper Kupp Triple Crown year he had a couple years ago, and I think Puka is going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to be taking Jahad Campbell. Hot take, but I think Jahad Campbell has the best opportunity and the best situation to be that Defensive Rookie of the Year. Paired alongside Zach Bond, I have no disbelief that Jahad Campbell is going to be an elite level player. He shouldn't have fell far down draft boards in the first place. He's got a lot of raw talent, and I think he's going to be a perfect fit for Vic Fangio's defensive scheme. So give me Jahad Campbell at plus 1,400 odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year is going to be Omarion Hampton. Ashton Jeanty is the hot pick. Yes, I know. I don't like picking the hot players all the time, so Ashton Jeanty I think realistically will win. But I'm going to take Omarion Hampton because I like his situation a lot better than Ashton Jeanty's. I think he is going to get a lot more opportunities to run the ball. Yes, Najee Harris is there, but I think Omarion Hampton is going to have a lot more chances to be productive with the football. His offensive line is a lot better, and I'm just liking what his situation is. John Harbaugh loves to run the football. We went over this, and I think he is going to be the bell cow of that offense. And for my MVP, give me Baker Mayfield. Huge hot take here, but I think Baker Mayfield is going to have that year that is going to make him stand out as that top 5 quarterback. His offensive weapons are going to be absolutely lethal. We saw Bucky Irving take a step up last year, and I think if they are able to balance their run game with their pass game, Baker Mayfield, that offense is going to be they're going to be able to keep a lot of teams off their feet a little bit and not know what's coming all the time. But as we know, they're going to stay as a pass-first offense. Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Mika Ibuka, Tez Johnson, Jalen McMillan, Cade Otton. Like, your offense is stacked. And Baker Mayfield is going to lead this team to the playoffs. I think they very well could end up in the higher seeds of the NFC, but Baker Mayfield's going to win MVP. Now, getting into my playoff predictions. In the AFC, I have the Broncos taking on the Texans, and I have the Broncos grabbing that game. I have the Steelers taking on the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to grab that one. The Chargers taking on the Bills, though. The Bills will win that. 49ers facing the Bucks. The Bucks will win that. The Lions facing the Packers. The Green Bay Packers will win that. Falcons versus Rams. Rams will win that one. Now, for the divisional round. I have the Bills finally winning over the Chiefs. I have the Ravens taking down the Broncos. I have the Rams taking down the Packers. And I have the Eagles taking down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then I have the Ravens making the Super Bowl, and I have the Rams making the Super Bowl, which leads to a Rams-Ravens Super Bowl. And I'm sorry, Lamar, I don't think it's happening just yet. Give me the Los Angeles Rams to win their second Super Bowl in the 2020s. Let me know what you think of those predictions. A little bit hot, I know, but I'm fairly confident about all of these. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you for sitting through this long video, and let me know what predictions are right, what's wrong, and I can't wait to react to these at the end of the year. See you guys Thursday Night Football.